Okay.
I don't want to interrupt, but I'm not getting any audio coming through on your guys' end. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Jeff.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you.
Oh, good. Excellent. So just catching you up, Jeff, we're approving the minutes. We just entertained a motion to approve the minutes from our January 22nd, 2026 meeting. And so let's do that all again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. Sorry, what was that?
Did Jeff vote? I did not hear it.
Jeff, did you vote?
Aye. Yes. Approved. Yes.
Thank you. I think the technology is just a little bit slow.
Yeah, apologies.
Okay. Next, we will move on to old and unfinished business. And first, we will be discussing a continued discussion of heritage tree objective metrics. I will yield the floor to Eric Bush to regarding the definition of the heritage tree.
Might make a recommendation before we jump into this item, since we do have Joyce here. Before we get into these two items that may go a little bit, we might want to be courteous and see if she wanted to tell us a little bit about the library and Arbor Day, which is, I think, why you're here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Feel free to disagree, Commissioner.
So that you don't have to stay for our whole meeting, I think that we should cover your business first.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate the invitation to come through. My name is Joyce Dowdy. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at East Bonner County Library District. On April 25th, we're going to be holding Earth Day events that includes Arbor Day celebration. Because they were both occurred during the same week, we're kind of rolling it together and wanting to give emphasis to both aspects for our community. Last year, Paige had spearheaded a strictly Arbor Day one as part of our Natural Connections event and had a whole cadre of folks do things. And so this year we're taking a little bit different approach, expanding our reach to bigger audiences. Our youth department will be having some activities, art activities, different sorts of things. Teen department, and we're also reaching out to other community organizations to have them involved and in terms of activities or a booth or what have you. And because I, as well as the library and the community, really care about trees in our community, and the importance of them being acknowledged through Arbor Day is often, sometimes gets, everybody's busy. So we were hoping that possibly you guys would have interest as part of, this commission to be involved and partake in some way. I'm not sure if you've already established an Arbor Day celebration this year for the city of Sandpoint specifically. But if not, if you wanted to utilize this, or if you just wanted to use this as a separate thing. And trying to look to see what your needs are as the commission and how maybe we can work together and collaborate or partner to raise awareness of trees in our community and their importance in our, what some people don't think of as an urban environment, but does operate as an urban environment. And has special needs. We're still gonna have, last I heard, Paige was going to, do a tree planting, class, and we'll plant a tree on the library property. There'll also probably be some Ask the Arborist booths or what have you, and I wanted to hear what you guys were thinking and how, if it made sense to collaborate. I don't know. First, I'll ask you, and then some other ideas that people brought forth. What are your thoughts? What are your plans for summer?
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for being here today.
Joyce, I can say from the staff perspective, be happy to link up. I think it's a great idea. My goal in having Arbor Day celebration generally is to have people there. And, we could set up a booth anywhere in town, but if there's not people there, it doesn't help anyone. So I think it's a great idea to do it with, an event that the library is putting on. The library obviously has great space for that sort of thing. Last year we did our event at farmer's market on a Saturday, which was great, but it was almost too much. Because the farmer's market is the farmer's market, right? There's a lot going on there.
Okay.
So I think from my perspective anyway, I'm super supportive of that.
Okay, and I should mention, the plan is, what they're doing, we all know what Arbor Day is like around here, but is to be in the garden, but we have the meeting rooms as backup space. So we got you covered. Other than the planting, we just put up a little tent.
Everyone knows you get dirty when you plant a tree.
Yeah, yeah. Be prepared for the weather. Is there any, thank you very much for your interest in from the staff perspective. That's awesome. And any interest also with the commission or other thoughts? I mean, one thing we did have last year that we don't have arranged this year is seedlings to give out. Appropriate seedlings for our location. I didn't know if that might be something the commission or staff might be interested in, bringing forward to the community. Or some sort of activity, or if you have arborists amongst you that you would want to be another Ask the Arborist, or if there's any activity, educational piece. I know one of the things my colleague was mentioning was doing like did one similar last year. You run around to different things.
Scavenger hunt.
Scavenger
Yes.
hunts, thank you.
Yes.
And it was interesting, we were talking about that, and she didn't know we were gonna be talking. And she's like, yeah, did you see that book the city has? And I was like, you talking about the heritage one? And, the heritage trees? And she's like, yeah, that's a cool book. And so we were thinking, well, maybe that should be a prize for like a scavenger hunt or something like that. So I don't know if there's resources or, I don't know. What you would like it to see. We're trying to lock it down. We have to get the rest of our information into marketing. I mean, they have they frozen for us, but any co-sponsors, if you guys would like to co-sponsor this, I'd love to have you listed as such, your logo and all that. I need that in the next weekish or so, because they're very timely, because that's part of this is you would be included on posters, we do marketing, we put it on the website, all that kind of thing. And whether it's the commission or whether it's a city co-sponsoring, all of that sort of detail would be helpful to know. and who my contact person would be to work those details out. The way we could have a commitment to that. I know I'm kind of throwing it at you, but if I have cards here, I'd be happy to leave some of my cards and you can reach out. Oops. Reach out however, makes sense.
Thank you.
You know,
Joyce, I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
From at least city staff perspective, what the commission wants to do.
Mhm.
Is commission business.
Okay,
But as a, Sandpoint has Tree City USA status.
Mhm.
As part of maintaining that, it is, one of the requirements is having an Arbor Day celebration. So
absolutely.
in service of that, absolutely. I can say for last year's Arbor Day celebration, we had, large seedlings that, we gave out. I think we had 100 or 150, something to that effect. They were donated by, Idaho Department of Lands.
Okay,
I don't know whether or not that'll be available this year,
Okay.
but, if it is, great. If not, perhaps we could find another donor.
okay. And one of the challenges, just to, full disclosure, and we can always talk offline on this, but just to throw out there in case there's somebody around the table who fits the bill for it, is, if we could, like you said, find other donors possibly, or maybe it's something the library could bear the cost for. The challenge is the care for them, like between the time of receiving them and giving them out. I don't really have any setup. So I don't know if any of your members do, or if you do as staff. Knowing you plant trees, you probably do. So that would be an also very valuable thing to us, where it's like somebody just comes that day and here's these, well cared for ceilings of quality that we can give out to the community free of charge.
Mhm.
So, does the commission, I appreciate you speaking as staff. Does the commission have any questions or comments or thoughts for me at this point? Or did you want to deliberate yourselves and then get back to me? What's your guidance towards?
I mean, I see some kind of conjunct event being a good idea to increase exposure for everyone involved.
Yes,
I would agree with that. To combine efforts.
yes. I think nobody really knows our commission exists, and so it would be excellent to, and a good way besides the Heritage Tree booklet to show, yes, we're here and we're doing something. So having a booth there represented by our commission, I think would be really strong.
So it's 10 to 1, the actual event time on Saturday, April 25th. So if that helps you plan. And then, Eric, you said you could be point person for staff. Will you also be facilitating in terms of the commission, or should I anticipate somebody from the commission reaching back out to me? What's the most efficient way?
I suppose we could do it either way. Staff generally sets the agenda for the commission meetings, so
Okay.
I can coordinate from the city's perspective, and then for coordinating with the commission at large, the commission can't meet in a quorum without public meeting notification.
Okay,
So, we can have agenda items, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
okay,
at these commission meetings for, I guess it would be the next 2 months. Discussing Arbor Day activities
okay.
type thing.
All right. So, with that being said, I'd appreciate it if we could connect maybe next week sometime.
Sure.
Because then I at least need to get a bare bones to the marketing team. And even if we use big language, like you're co-sponsoring, look for activities from, or something. And then, like you said, in following months, nail down who's doing what, when, how. If that works for the rest of you, that seems that might be the best way to move forward.
There's different angles it could be come at from. I mean, there could be two commissioners that serve essentially as community liaisons for a booth to where we're not, violating, quorum.
Okay.
The body of the commission.
And apologies, I didn't mean that with respect to commissioners being present at the celebration.
Mhm.
We could publicize that as a meeting,
Mhm.
for, I'm not gonna say the right terminology, but for open meeting purposes, we did that last year. So no concern there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, we don't want to only have two commissioners at the meeting if everyone wants to be there, sort of thing.
right,
That wouldn't
right.
be very productive.
Yeah, and and that's the other thing is if there's any sort of class, formal class or training you would like to offer, that I would need to know sooner because we want to promote those kind of really hard, not hard, but definitive educational pieces versus some of the general activities that people ebb and flow for. So like if there's a certain start time, and that would be back to wanting to at least have enough to promote it initially by next week. Our marketing group, as you can imagine, works in advance. So,
And I'm Vice Chair Commission, Eric, we do have pretty meager funding for all the committees and commissions. I'm just trying to find the line item right now. I know the planning commissions use some of it for subscription, but there could be 100 or 150, $250 to do like a banner. You guys ongoing, be able or something like that. Should get together and look at what's left in the fund and what amount is there. I don't know if you have a logo, but
I do have,
maybe the city logo would just be
at least I've seen, I don't know if I have in my office, but there was an Arbor Day flag somewhere hanging around at some point. Last year I had one of the Arbor Day street signs at the celebration, kind of denoting.
in
This
the
is what
past,
we
you've
are.
also always, as part of your Tree City USA distinction, have always had a flag as well.
Yeah,
A Tree City USA flag, and feel free to, if at your booth you wanted to have Tree City USA information, if you didn't have locally specific information or Arbor Day Foundation information, of course, that's always welcome, getting any information out to the community. They have in the past, a lot of resources. I know a lot of things have gone online electronic, so I might be dating myself with that. But there's possibly still some of that stuff.
Welcome. Would you like to have a seat?
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I know you guys got a lot on your agenda. I appreciate you shifting it up, and I look forward to hearing from you and working together on this.
good. Thank you,
Okay.
Joyce.
Thank you,
Yes,
Josh.
thanks.
Appreciate you visiting.
Did I get here late? I thought it was 3:30.
So it starts at 3. Are you here for the public
3:30?
comment?
Must have
Oh, it's,
had the wrong time.
it's all right.
Till I looked at
Um,
the.
Mercury's in record. Technology.
Well, we did just sort of have a public comment. I believe this would be the place for a public comment from another member of the public before we start on our regular business. I will check in with the clerk on the legality of how that operates.
Good if you're still in public comments. on the
Okay.
Agenda item. There's no
Thank you.
action being taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I heard 3:30 and I didn't get online to check.
And I will check in with the clerk. Are we for public comments? Do we have a required time frame to be
Just-
within?
As you are presiding in the meeting, whatever you deem to someone offer, let them, it's totally up to you.
Okay, well, I will say, Jane, we have a lot to cover in the meeting. If you
Yes.
can try to, give us your important information in a concise way, we would very much appreciate that.
Thank you, Mitch. So yes, and I'm sorry, I would have been here on time. I just had heard the wrong information.
But my mind was.
No,
I think
it was at a native plant meeting. But I had met with, I'm Jane Fritz. I live just outside of the city limits and some considered. But I've lived in this county and it's 48 years. And the trees have always been the most important part of my living. I wrote a book about Lake Congaree and I have a lot of other interests. I worked on the geese issue at City Beach for a few years back in the day when they were being pounded up and destroyed. So I don't come to city council often, but I'm concerned about lots of things. Please. But I want to focus just today on the cottonwoods on Cedar Street. And that's because I did meet with Rachel, the public works person. We actually spent about an hour together going over things on the computer. And I was under the impression cottonwood trees at the end of Cedar Street, and the Cedar Street reconstruction is a great idea. It's definitely needed. And I'm aware of the fact that the silver maple chicane, is that what it's called? It's a beautiful tree. But the trees down the street towards Lincoln are the ones most ecological. And I know that they are considered junk. Street. Rachel was going to send me, and she didn't, list of the acceptable trees for the city. I'm dealing with like a dissolution of a nonprofit that's 37 years. I'm up to my eyeballs right now, and I just haven't had time to do more research. But I wanted to, I'll give you a copy. I've got two things to share. And I just want to remind you of this in your forestry manual about our urban forests, you know, what they do. It really strikes me that this is an important mission. I don't need to read it, you're all familiar with it. But that kind of guides me, plus my own love of trees, and seeing how they're just suffering everywhere. And I think climate change has a lot to do with that. Things really changed when windstorms happened many Marches ago. We lost thousands of trees, and just I worry about. But the cottonwoods, I've got two things here to give you, and I've got only 2 copies of this. I'm sorry, I ran out of time.
We can pass it around.
But
Thank you.
this is, and let me hit one for a second, just to kind of read it into the record. I have a friend who's a naturalist in Montana. Right now he's down in Mexico working, but he grew up in Bonners Ferry and he's 30 years old. He's amazing. But he has a blog and podcast called wildwithnature.com. He does a lot of work on birds, how important they are with native tree species, such as cottonwoods. And I'll just read the couple paragraphs out loud if I can. Cottonwoods are super important for wildlife, though they're also relatively abundant, short-lived, and often drop branches, which can be hazardous in urban settings. So there might be some of the reasons why you aren't enthusiastic about saving them and why you consider them junk. As far as importance, the National Wildlife Federation has a website, reports 217 species of butterflies and moths in the Sandpoint area that would be expected to use cottonwoods as their host plant. Second only to native willows, probably another one on your job. They're all trees that lose branches, et cetera, in the number of butterfly and moth species they support. And he's got, you know, full of things. I don't know if that'll be useful, but the website link is there. That translates into a lot of food for songbirds like black-capped chickadees, yellow warblers, vireos, northern house wrens. All of those birds are on my cottonwoods next to my yurt pine. Then there are the woodpeckers that commonly use cottonwood trunks for nesting cavities, affiliated woodpeckers, northern flickers, Lewis woodpeckers, downy woodpeckers, and the species that later reuse those nesting cavities like tree swallows, American kestrels, wood ducks, western screech owls. So in short, cottonwoods are extremely important wildlife trees, especially along streams and rivers where they're extensive. And even these couple of trees are undoubtedly used by songbirds. So, and then what I want to just add to what Shane has said, I have been working with a Vista. Originally thought those cottonwoods were on a Vista property. Rachel for me, they are not. They are city property. Unfortunately, but, because I know you want to let them go, they would be valuable to Avista. I did reach out to their environmental compliance person. I have not heard back from him. I did not have time to call today. But they are fledgling trees, perch trees for fledgling osprey, which is very close to the project area. Rachel and I talked about timing when, the birds are eggs, et cetera, all of that. And I also planned to call, and she was going to as well, Jamie Belkamp from Northwest Birds of Prey. I worked with Wayne Melquist, who's now retired, Fish and Game, and he's the person who's like the osprey expert in the West. Expanded thousands of osprey, and he came and met with Jim Kane and I at Avista several years ago about those not as osprey at Lincoln. I've been monitoring them for almost 10 years now.
Jane, I really appreciate your comments.
So,
We are going to have to move forward.
okay, I just wanna share this, and I did make enough copies, I think, this one. But to me, it would be a disservice for lots of reasons, but concern to Avista, because if those trees aren't there for perch trees, for adult osprey and young osprey, they will be landing on poles at the substation. They bring their fish in, have to eat it, have to feed their chicks. The nest that's there is extremely successful. Last year it had 3 fletchlings, and I got them all on film when they fletch, and they all fly to the islands, the mature ones especially, and back.
Thank you.
The other thing just to pass around, this is a letter that was sent to the city clerk, but I just thought I'd make a copy of it because she just sent it to me. Bonnie Kirkwood lives in the Lincoln Street apartments there. And you can read what she has to say. I just thought I would share it with you face to face today.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate you sharing your feedback with us. One thing we have been discussing on this commission is the role of heritage trees, how we designate them, and maybe we'll talk about having a conversation about this grove of trees and if these trees meet any of those qualifications. Also, I don't mean to cut you off, but we do have other business to attend to.
Is it okay if I stay?
Of course, yes. And, if you feel you have more to share with us, you can always reach out with an email that will be sent to all of our commission members. So that you feel that all of your thoughts are heard.
I think, city council has heard this, right, Kyle?
Yep.
But anyway, and one last thing, Paige, John Gaddis did contact me about, there's younger cottonwoods that are closer to the Avista property, and I think they're still on city, but they're closer to the Avista field, closer to the nest. They're not quite big enough, but those 3 mature are really ones.
When we
Thanks.
visit that in our conversation, we'll focus on those 3. Thank you, Jane. Okay, moving forward. So moving back to, we'll move on to old business, and I will yield the floor to Eric Bush regarding the definition of the heritage tree.
Last month, we discussed kind of, not expanding the definitions, the 5 categories that were defined, but more so assigning, objective metrics, to those categories. I provided each commissioner a list of, 5 to 7 bullets per each one. The kind of homework was review. Let me know if you have any comments. So I think we discussed pretty robust last month, but did anyone get a chance to take a look, have anything to add, delete, modify to those categories? And I can share the Word doc I have on my screen if that's helpful.
Just think that the critical thing is already done. We spent a year deliberating over the definition of a heritage tree and finally landed on one and getting that adopted into the city code and the tree ordinance. I think that's the priority. How we go about those conversations amongst ourselves, I think we can take our definition and have an intelligent conversation about it as we are. Those are my 2 cents.
I haven't had a chance to look at them again, Eric, but the time of our last meeting, they seem quite thorough, complete, so it's a good working document.
It's just to serve as a decision tree.
Exactly.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. It's not intended to say it can only be these 5 bullets under historical or whatever it may be. It's intended to be a guiding metric for how a particular tree or grove in that context would be evaluated. The intent is not so much with this commission because we're, on year 2, and I think everyone's kind of on the same page with how these types of things might be applied, but to have a metric for, say, 10 years from now, when it's a new group of people. So this commission is not assigning categorizations to trees differently than a future commission might, future members. The intent is so that it's has some continuity.
I have a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is this intended to be included in the ordinance or in the arboricultural manual?
I think that it would probably be in something like this would probably be included in the manual.
Okay.
To allow for exactly what I was just describing. So it's not the necessarily conversations we're having in these meetings and have had in the last 6 months or whatever it may be. So that when there's a group of new members here, the trees are being evaluated in the same way in the future. That's my intent.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree with that intent. My only comment was gonna be, let's keep the actual text of the ordinance pretty concise, but it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, I think the definitions would be what would the 5 categories would be what would be included in the ordinance. And perhaps there's an appendix in the manual that says, here's the process for evaluating. Something to that effect. I'd defer to legal on how everything is kind of oriented in there, but I think it would probably be something similar to that.
I'm in alignment with that.
Yeah.
And it was brought up, I think, maybe at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, potentially, showcasing these trees or labeling them with a plaque that identifies them to residents in the city. I think because we're talking about, the adopting our official process and how this is going to work in the future, I think it's important for us to think through the whole process. So now we have a definition. We potentially have a decision-making rubric for making these decisions. But we don't have a full process, which is, how do city residents bring up, I think this should be brought to your commission and you should vote on it. What does that look like? And we don't have to decide on all of that today, but we should be thinking about it since when this goes into the city code, we should be prepared to include any other important points like that, like how are trees nominated from residents, how do they reach our board? And then once they reach our board, if we move forward and say, yes, this is going to become a heritage tree, then what do we do with that information? Does it get posted on the city's website? A lot of cities do this for their urban forest. They highlight them through a link on the website because most people are using that type of technology these days. Are we going to put these into a new booklet? Do they receive that placard? And what does that mean for these trees? So that can be a larger conversation. Maybe we can talk a little now or put it on a future agenda item, whatever you guys think.
I kind of wonder about the booklet, the Outstanding Trees booklet, which is fine if you have your population defined once. But if you're just adding to, maybe many of those trees would be designated as heritage trees with the new definitions. So they would fall into the book, they would stay in the book. We're on residents to nominate trees, then we're going to keep adding to. I don't know if there's like a limit to being out for heritage trees or,
I don't think so.
okay,
I don't think we have a cap.
okay.
Preston, I think I can address some of that, at least from the heritage tree, or excuse me, the outstanding trees pamphlet, the one that one. That is available digitally and you know, printed. Completely agreed that the world is, you know, digital. I can say that we have quite a bit of interest from folks walking into City Hall because they've heard about that and wanting a copy of it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be great to have an updated version of that. And that could be relatively low effort, meaning I think a lot of those trees are still there. We can include those and maybe that's the starting point for, you know, the first group of trees that's defined as heritage. And then we have a number 25 something 50, I don't know, that is included in that booklet. We have something that people can get a physical copy of. That doesn't preclude other trees in the future. I think I addressed this commission maybe in the fall. One of the members of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission is a graphic designer and talked about developing a microsite with kind of a geo-reference map, digital map, that I think would be an awesome way to take that. And we could circle back up with those guys when the time comes. But you'd have the physical booklet, but then you could have a, you know, map that shows here, that sort of thing, which I think is pretty cool.
Right.
I think some folks use the booklet as kind of a scavenger hunt type thing. You know, they walk around town and look for them. And that's great if you want the booklet. If you want to look at it on your phone or something, and there's a little microsite that has a map with tree icons or something to that effect, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, if there were plaques on trees, then you could put a QR code that would go to, you know, all the trees, you know, a website that would show all the trees.
That would be very
You
cool.
could go
Yeah.
travel around and look at them, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the break is, we don't want to be doing that on trees that are on private property.
Right.
But on right-of-way trees, I think that's definitely an option, because we don't want to direct folks to be trespassing. You know, to take a look at a tree, because a number of the trees that are in the current manual are on private property, and that's great, we should highlight those. But we should also probably do it with the, you know, permission of the property owner. I think we could include it in a pamphlet. I don't think we want to put a QR code on it. And if the property owner says, no, I don't want my property associated, then from my perspective anyways, I think that would be appropriate to not include something.
It sounds like a more efficient way to do it. That booklet is printed when I was planning director, my department, it costs about a little over $10,000.
Yeah.
So
There's a definite cost associated with that.
I mean, we get a lot of boxes of that.
Yeah,
No, when I was planning director, we printed those, Steve Drinker and I. Cost $10,000.
And I think they're gone.
Digital version might be
Yeah.
more.
And it would be easier for us to start it and grow it slowly over time without worrying about a publication becoming suddenly outdated because now we have 50 trees instead of 20 trees.
Or a lightning strike trees.
Yeah, I know of a couple on the brochure that are no longer there, so.
Right.
A digital copy would allow you to update it.
So I'm not a web designer. I'll defer to the consider experts in that world, but I know it's a possibility. So figuring out how we get there is, you know, would be the next step.
didn't Chris Bessler and POP work on this one? His name and prints are all over. That's what they do, so they might be.
And this is a good question for you, Councilman Schreiber. So we're waiting for the opportunity for our new language about heritage trees to be adopted, right, into the city code when there is a city code update. That was my understanding from one of our previous meetings.
I'll be drafting the city code update. I'll likely be engaging a consultant on the legal side of things to ensure that the code update is appropriate for a city code. But I'll likely prepare some draft language, turn it over to a consultant for vetting. And then that would go to city council for review and adoption.
In
Okay.
fact, I think the city attorney has to sign off on it.
Yeah, the city attorney signs off somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
There.
Do you feel you need external council review though? Something like that?
I do. Codes have a lot of legal implications. And while we have a great legal team, they're not tree experts. So engaging a group that has an expertise in drafting tree ordinance, I think is pretty important to make sure we get it right.
Okay, so my understanding was not correct. We're not waiting for a large bundle of new ordinance issues to be adopted. We're just waiting on the next steps for you to
Yep.
reach out. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that. So then the question is, I thought it would make sense to bundle, a couple of these other things, like what is our whole process, and maybe add that to the ordinance. But I think probably just adopting what we've all agreed upon sooner than later is probably better, and we can continue this conversation about these other things when we have more time to do so. Is that what you guys think?
The the updated tree ordinance will be larger than just the definition of heritage trees. So our current tree ordinance has all sorts of things related to urban forestry in it. What I'm talking about, and maybe that's the clarification, Chase, is an update of the whole ordinance, not just as it relates to heritage trees. So making sure we get all of the T's crossed and I's dotted sort of thing with the ordinance.
The whole tree ordinance?
Yes,
Well, that's a really big goal.
which is why I'm engaging a consultant.
So that's one of our goals actually for our commission for this year. So we'll have to focus on that as a group, and come up with our ideas, together with you, Eric.
Yep, and the idea would be that I think the current ordinance is a good starting point, hasn't been updated in quite a while. That would be reviewed by the consultant, draft language would be returned to me. This commission would review it and comment. Go back to the consultant. Final tweaking, and then go through the legal review, city council adoption.
So the question in my mind is, can we and should we just adopt this small piece? Because it's gonna take quite a bit of time. It could take the whole rest of 2026 for us to update the current tree ordinance, if that was the only thing that we focused on. So why not move ahead and have this piece? I mean, we worked on it for a whole year. Can we have that piece adopted into city code and then work on other pieces later?
I don't know that a patchwork makes much sense. I mean, let's just slow walk this and get it right, do it in one fell swoop. Be my take.
I tend to agree, Chase, and I defer to Councilor Schreiber and Mayor Grimm on whether a incremental improvement or a large improvement of the code is preferred.
So you're saying the entire chapter 15 urban forestry?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's definitely an argument to be made for doing it all at once, for efficiency's sake. There also, I think, having gone through this Cedar Street reconstruction project, it was a lot of extra work for staff and council because we didn't have clear direction on the heritage trees. And in a lot of ways, I think that having that, just that piece adopted prior to that project's kickoff might have made that project a little bit smoother. Council would have had fresh eyes to look at, is this silver maple, does it fit the definition that the current definition, let's call it. So I think there's arguments to be made both directions. I don't think there's any harm in this commission voting to adopt it and making the recommendation to council to update it, and then council can decide when to do that.
And for clarity, this commission has already accepted those 5 definitions, so that works done.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to remember. I thought last fall we did.
Yep.
Because we had postponed it a couple times because there wasn't everybody present, but I think everybody's had an opportunity to weigh in and.
Yep,
And it was officially,
all 5 of those definitions were voted on in October, November, I believe, last year.
okay, so,
So that works done.
yeah. So I guess. The work of the commission is already done, and now it's up to council to take up that recommendation and actually put it into law. Is that accurate?
So, yeah. And I would just say, in terms of workload, you've got a lot of work ahead of you this year, so. You have a sense of how much you can get accomplished. Would agree that sooner. you should Down. How you approach this. Love the comprehensive sort of delivery of the date. Check the box. Sure.
With Counselor Shriver, I mean, touching on projects like the EC or reconstruction, I mean, this commission could always weigh in on a matter or an individual project to then have that advice be provided to the council.
Totally.
I don't think everything has to necessarily be codified for the council to get direction on what this commission feels like on a project.
Yeah, Chase, I think you nailed it. That was exactly exactly what occurred with the Cedar Street project.
Yeah.
Without the process being fully adopted in code, this commission made the recommendation regarding that maple tree. City council reviewed it, accepted the recommendation of this commission.
Yeah. I guess the sticking point that I see is that our current code would be law until we change it, right? So the current code says, designated by the tree committee in coordination with the historic preservation committee. So it would take that back and forth and probably be a
What section are we
7, 15, 13. So I guess that's the only sticking point, because that did take a couple months, I think, when we were updating that one of the 5 definitions, the historical definition. And I still think that the historical preservation should weigh in on that, the trees that are identified as historical, but this, as it's written today, ACHP has to weigh in on everyone, which could slow things down. And if council is waiting on a recommendation from the tree committee, and then the tree committee has to get input from ACHP, and then that recommendation comes back to the tree committee before the tree committee can make a recommendation to council, that could slow us down by months.
As everyone in this group knows, I'm not a lawyer. I would guess that there's an interpretation of that code that line of code referencing the ACHP would only apply to a historical definition.
Okay.
I'm speculating
Yeah.
here, but if it's a historical, one of the 5 categories that's historical, if it's a tree being considered for that designation, yes, you would want the concurrence of the ACHP. If it was a tree being considered for a specimen designation, I don't think the ACHP would need to weigh in on.
Right.
That's under the purview of this group.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Chairman, can I ask?
I will,
Out of the board.
I just need to ask the clerk if is that up to the discretion of the chair?
It's up to the discretion of the chair.
Can your question be very?
Yes,
brief?
it's just that as you're discussing it, and I could see both points of view. But just the thought that there are trees out there that would maybe consider heritage trees that are doing. And then, like Farm Park. And some of them are dying. And they might be considered heritage trees. So it just, factoring that in, it seems to me that they were.
So was there a question?
Well, it was just, wouldn't that make more sense to take the tree's health and life into consideration as far as when have things in the ordinance and to have a book, when to have all.
I do think time is of the essence for trees in Sandpoint because there is a lot of rapid development occurring and there are almost no protections for trees at the moment. And we do live in North Idaho where things are very different here regarding development and trees, but the sooner that this definition is codified, the sooner that some trees could receive certain protections. So if there is no downside to adding this to code in just I don't think we should piecemeal the entire code process. But this one piece I do think is important to put in sooner than later. And that there could be some pretty serious downsides of not having this in the code for the next year or 2 years while we decide on everything else. We may not even be the same board. Well, we won't be in the fall. There will be different people on the board and the conversation may go to something else and the priorities may be something else at that time. And who knows, maybe it never will even be adopted into code, something that we worked really hard on. So that said, I will make a motion that we go ahead and take the definition that we all agreed upon for heritage trees and make our recommendation to council for their consideration that this definition be adopted into city code at the next opportunity.
It's just action.
I don't think that it needs to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but
No, I mean, if you're gonna take an action.
to make a recommendation, well, we can always add it to the agenda next month.
You can see getting this piece across the finish line. Because if it's going to take us, hope it doesn't take us a year, to finish the other parts. But to get something across the finish line would be a good idea. Not today, but when it on the agenda as an action. Get it before council.
I guess based off what Eric said, that this mission already adopted this new definition and recommended it to council for approval, then it would just be up to council and the mayor to get it on the agenda.
So do we not have to vote to make that recommendation to
Well,
council?
I think, Kyle, I think we need, so it's been a recommendation. Council needs to, it's council's
Right.
recommendation, and if so.
Yeah, and right. It sounded like your desire was to get it done before the rest of the title.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
So, I mean, as a council member, I could get another one and we could fill out the form, but do you want to expedite it and get it on a
Yeah,
council
I
meeting
mean,
sooner?
yeah, we will doing that.
Yep.
Get it?
So just
Okay.
move forward with subsection 13 and then update the rest of chapter 15 later. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think you're asking. Being,
Excellent. Well, we don't need an action item.
Yeah, good conversation. Are there any further comments about this subject, or should we move forward?
Just a comment.
I think we need to move forward. If it's a question, but maybe at the end, if there's
I was
time.
gonna say, I think Pam Duquette has taken that book and going around what's still.
Thanks.
Excellent. I'll have to touch base with Pam. Thank you. So we need to move on to our new business. Be discussing the proposed, going to be brainstorming about a budget and a recommendation to council for the urban forestry budget for 2027. I know we're going to,
Can
yes.
I interject? On our agenda, we have a published item number 3, commission election of vice chair, action item. If that's,
So that is
Is that
confusing
happen?
because we did that election at a previous meeting.
the action's already been taken.
Yes, I'm not sure if maybe that item was not deleted from an old agenda or,
Sorry. I
yeah,
have
no,
it.
that, I think that's.
okay. I just assumed maybe it was a mistake
'Cause
because
it's in-
we did vote.
It's in the minutes from last
It
month.
wasn't the cleanest vote, but
There was, I can provide a little bit of clarity there. The procedural process of Paige being elected vice chair, there was not a second after that motion was made. So the vote was had, I was talking with the Melissa, our city clerk, and Haley, the deputy clerk, last week. Procedurally, theoretically, the vote should just be retaken. But because the vote was the vote, I think it was ultimately determined that we don't need to revisit it. Just for clarification, it was just a procedural, there was a motion and then I think a vote happened pretty much right away without a formal second.
Since it's been agendized as an action item and didn't get a clear vote, would it be harm to take another vote?
I actually don't see it on the agenda on the website.
It's not.
So that
Yeah.
that might actually.
Yeah, that's right. It isn't on
I
the,
must have an older version then.
Okay.
this, yeah.
That would actually cause more problems.
I did, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're good on that item. Yes. Okay. So moving on to new business, real quick before I yield the floor to Eric. I think that it's important in this conversation that we consider adopting a budget process because creating a budget or discussing a budget can be a very complex issue. And we could probably spend the rest of our time. We only have less than a half hour left for this meeting. I don't know how much time do you feel like you need for your portion of this presentation, Eric?
I need to set the stage a little
Okay.
bit, so
Do you know about?
five or so minutes.
Okay,
And I think that this is gonna be an ongoing discussion for a couple months at least. But I can set the stage and then
Okay.
this group can take it from there.
and then I think because Joyce visited us today, we should probably with the upcoming Arbor Day, leave some minutes at the end to try to discuss how we're gonna participate in that event. Because
so
time is of the essence, so I'll,
Let's call this item till 4:25 and we'll have 5 minutes to discuss Arbor Day.
yeah, I think we better actually wrap it up a little sooner than that, maybe 4:20, so we have 10 minutes for other announcements and items. Okay, so I'll yield the floor to Eric Bush. To
Eric, if I can
discuss.
just jump in high
Please.
level before you go and just discuss how the budget works. So I work with department heads. The budget finance director, the mayor's office puts together a balanced budget. We deliver that to the city council. Council then gets to adjust, amend, meet with department heads, meet with individuals, potentially meet with commissions to try to get four councils to agree on if they want to move something. mayor's office. So that's generally how it works. Then the council obviously adopts the budget. It's the spending authority city to do the council. So my only suggestion is, there is code directs you to look at a budget. Right now, we don't really have a budget for urban forestry in the sense that what we have is effectively hazard tree removal funding. In the past, at one point, we're doing $10,000 a year neighborhoods program. So there's potential to get funding in there. Is in the next month and a half, 2 months, if you want to work on some and practical budgets that you think what we need as a city, I will sincerely look at those and see if we can fit them into a balanced budget based on all the other needs, cars, water pipes, and the police cars, the roads. Can't guarantee you get you everything you want. Set balanced budgets delivered to the council. Well, council members engage and ask for more detail. Use them as your lobbying changes.
Is this something that competes for general fund dollars? The context of it.
This would be competing for general fund. I mean, we right now we kind of hide it, I'll say, in the sense that we do have some of the money comes out. Streets, general funds, street tree hazards. I guess my thinking is, I mean, just if you haven't been aware of what's going on at the state level, there's pretty significant state cuts. I won't cry your river, but every year, basically, the city goes about $100,000 in a bunch of structural things. We had our budget last year. Well, tax revenue that we get, it's 3%. Less so this year, but the last 2 years are exceeded our new tax revenue. So every year we have about $100,000 less to put into streets, to put into many other things. So it's tight. Be tight. Kyle and council get to adjust things. They don't like but what I was thinking is, the way our budget year ends, it ends September. So right now we had a big thunderstorm in 12 trees out all on the ground. This is the only money we have to go. But if we could get through August and we hadn't spent that money, even this year, we could try to use some of that money to contract for support needs for the next year. So, I think there's potentially money this year to get through storm season and everything else. Months or something. But other than that, there are 350 hours a year are contributing staff time. So, almost 400 hours a year. So that's about 17% of that staff member's position. It's not that we're not contributing.
I just want to piggyback on that real quick. So the duties and responsibilities according to our city code of this commission, one of the bullet points is annually provide the city council with an analysis of urban forestry budget needs. And so that, yeah, that analysis comes to city council, and like the mayor pointed out, we have a lot of competing budgetary asks, right? Every department head, I'm sure, would love a huge increase in their budget. Every commission, I'm sure, would love a huge increase in their budget. Yeah, there's things that we're gonna have to say no to. So I just want to set the stage a little bit that like council very much wants to hear from this group because you're all very qualified experts in this field. But just be aware that everything you ask for is probably not gonna happen.
Yes, good point.
Yeah.
And I have one question, Mr. Mayor, following up on what you just said. What happens, say we don't have a storm season and the money that was allocated for those expenses, what's been happening to that money?
So any money we don't spend is the fun part, Kyle. We have something called one time. We don't spend, we have interest on our savings accounts. Significant money, it's not thousand. And then we have money we haven't spent, like this is weird. We'll probably reallocate that. But those become one-time money. So they get brought over to the next fiscal year as money we didn't spend. They're not gonna always be there. One-time money, typically best practices. Spend one-time monies on non-reoccurring needs such as buying new trucks. Things that we know will last 10 years longer, that just have special circumstances. Continuing funding source for.
Okay.
It basically gets rolled over into what we call one time.
Okay, thank you.
Which would generally speaking be capital.
Yeah, you don't want to fund a position.
Yeah, that would be really sad.
Yeah.
If that one-time money wasn't there again the next year, you have to fire that person.
For ongoing operating.
So let me provide some additional context. The end of last fiscal year, September 30th, we had spent a good portion of the budget that's before you. There's two breakdowns. Part of it is allocated to parks, part of it's allocated to streets. Streets manages, the streets budget is where I have funding to hire companies for hazard tree removal. We had some storm cleanup last year. As we got to the end of the season, we had some budget left. So that was the budget that I hit to plant trees in along First Avenue and Cedar towards the end of the fiscal year. So that was it's middle of August or something when I was putting my head together with the parks maintenance manager at the time, who's since retired. We purchased a bunch of trees, planted them downtown. So it was, we don't want this money to go away. We're gonna, replace some of the trees in the right of way that have died. So that's how, kind of hitting on what Mayor Graham said, some of that money is allocated. So we've got basically $25,000 in the streets fund, $25,000 in parks. That Parks does a lot of the maintenance on their own. They also work with me in certain instances, and I hire companies to remove trees, prune trees, that sort of thing. Same thing with right-of-way trees. In the urban forestry management plan, there's a big list of forestry program actions, basically how we maintain our urban canopy. I've shrunk it down from 10 bullets to 3. A lot of them are pretty similar. What I've got down here, the 3 under future. The risk management, hazard tree removal, that's kind of what a lot of that budget goes towards currently. So a lot of that is responsive when a storm comes in. Some of that just has to remain responsive because we can't evaluate and identify everything that's a potential risk in advance. So we have to have budget for that. Some of it absolutely can be proactive. If we have additional budget available, we can identify some of those and remove them before a storm takes them out, for example. The other one, the next one, tree clearance pruning zone is, we have height standards above our streets and height standards above our sidewalks that we have to have a clearance zone, vertical clearance zone above head for vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So that's deferred maintenance, basically, is another way to put it. We need that citywide. So what I would like to do in future years is break the city into 5, 10, 15 quadrants. And if we have budget, that we can allocate towards that in the future, we have a pruning program that we go through quadrant 1 in year 1, quadrant 2 in year 2, so on and so forth. And we start to catch up on some of that deferred maintenance. And some of it, in the first priority might not be in particular quadrants, it's sightline clearances. So you all probably know a number of stop signs throughout town that are just obstructed by tree growth. A number of intersections throughout town that are stop controlled that you can't see when you come up. So that's the type of thing I'm talking about there. There's also the proactive maintenance of structural pruning, which hasn't historically been done. We need to do that too. If you think about that in citywide, breaking the city into 10 quadrants and doing it as a 10-year cycle and then starting over in year 11, it's a lot. And that could be a pretty healthy number, yearly to catch up on that maintenance, but it's deferred maintenance. We need to do it. And the final one, tree planting and establishment. The urban forestry management plan addresses this as well as others review the list. But the key thing is we can plant trees. Planting trees is relatively easy, in basic terms. The problem is we cannot plant more trees than we can maintain. And maintain means pruning after year 1, year 2, year 3. But primarily it means getting water on those trees in the summer. So for example, with the Cedar Street project, will be under construction this summer, the project will be planting trees in the right of way. We will likely, it's not fully determined yet, but we will likely be installing water bags on each of those trees. Filling those water bags will either have to be done by labor from our streets department. A couple times a week, they have to go over there with a water truck and fill, which they do not currently have a functional water truck. Or you have a contract that a company comes out and fills those water bags twice a week. And we do that for a period of 3 to 5 years, something to that effect. So there's cost. It's not just the, $150 or $200 cost in the purchase of the tree, or the cost of planting the tree, whether it's done by in-house crews or as part of a contract. The larger cost, the long-term cost is keeping that tree alive. So part of the reason why, I recommended to Mayor Grimm 2 years ago, I think that we kind of take a pause on the Neighborhoods program was because we found that a lot of the trees that were being planted in the Neighborhoods program in right of way in front of folks' houses, for example, some folks would adopt and water those trees and keep them alive. We found a lot of death in those trees. So I didn't find it appropriate to continue to allocate our limited budget towards that. When we were, I don't quote me on this number. It was something like a 50 to 60% mortality rate in those trees. So I want to plant trees, but I want to plant trees and give them a chance to survive. It doesn't do us any good to stick a tree in the ground and then, it dies later that year because our summer's hot and dry. So there's a lot more to it, but those are 3 of the key pieces I think about as we're thinking about budgets here. So risk management, that's always going to be there. Tree clearance, think about that as maintenance. It's not just clearance and pruning for height clearances, it's structural pruning, it's maintenance generally. And then planting. So maintaining our canopy and maintaining and growing our canopy from a planting trees perspective, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It seems simple on the surface. Once you dive into the details, it gets pretty complex. So I am currently working on getting a RFP put together to get an on-call tree company basically on board for, I'm not totally sure of the structure, that it'll take. It's in process right now. One is for hazard tree removal, storm cleanup, that sort of thing. The other is for that tree pruning. So it's possible that we could have, two kind of on-call companies. One that would be a company that, is, employs certified arborists that would be pruning the trees in those contexts. The other would be perhaps an arborist or perhaps a tree crew that is qualified to remove hazard trees. So,
Thank you, Eric. That's very helpful.
and one more thing, and then I guess we're about out of time, but I wanted to address this too. The, part of this budget is, our streets crew and our parks crew has equipment that they use to respond to storm cleanup. Our internal crews aren't going and removing a right of way tree, for example, unless it's an immediate thing and we can't get someone on site. They do respond to a branch falls in the road after a storm. They've got some saws, they've got some equipment like that, so they use that budget for maintenance of their equipment, or if they need a new saw, that sort of thing.
From what I'm understanding, and have observed, the last 6 years here in Sandpoint, our urban forestry program is really responsive. Like, we are responding to putting out fires because of deferred maintenance, basically. We're not in a position right now to be really proactive and say, okay, we're gonna plant, 1,000 trees and we're going to get them the pruning and the watering and the mulching that they need to start off life correctly. And what we need to do is figure out how to shift from where we are to that new position, right? And that's not going to happen all at once. But I think it's really important when we're discussing the budget to think of all those details that Eric's saying. It's not so simple on the surface. A tree that requires structural pruning when it's 50 years old is really expensive to prune, and it's really hard on the tree, and it's really ugly when you do it, when it's required for, maybe a structural defect or something like that. So if we can figure out how to have a budget that supports us, the city being in a position to treat these trees with the care they need early. So we're talking about the first 5 to 10 years. A tree needs to be watered for 3 years, absolutely, in the summer months. So like Eric's spot on, like, we need to figure out how to do that if we're gonna plant trees, and that requires some money in the budget. And also, the trees require structural pruning so that structural defects can be identified. You have a high branch aspect ratio. That can be a 1 inch cut when the tree is 6 feet tall, and then the crew moves on, and it's that tree, that'll save that tree so much and the city money down the road. So if we can put together a budget that's defensible, that makes sense to kind of shift into a proactive position, I think we'll be making a lot of progress for our city. I think we'll be doing a really good thing.
Yeah, I'll just add, the page, you're right on, we are reactive. I just want to expand your aperture. It's not unique to our trees. We are, let's talk about, we got $59 million worth of. We are out there putting Band-Aids. It's not unique to the forestry. You're not a loved, stepchild of the city. It's just a reality.
And Mayor Grimm mentioned earlier the hours of my time that's allocated to forestry. Some of those hours are allocated to, time in this commission and preparing for these meetings, that sort of thing. In the summer season, spring through fall, the majority of my time goes into responding to tree permits. I don't get nearly as many as I would like. I know there's a lot of activity that I don't know about. Some of it I see, a lot of it I don't. But I spend a lot of that time, in particular with tree permits, with people with removal requests. Sometimes I outright deny them. Other times I go to the property owner's house and spend a couple hours talking to them, figure out what they need with the intent to, one, if it's a tree that actually needs to come down, I'm not going to outright deny it. Sometimes I get removal requests for healthy trees and I will outright deny it, but I'll still call them and talk to them and say, hey, what's going on here? And my intent there is if we lose a tree and it's a place where it's appropriate to replace a tree, I will at times approve permit removals for trees that are still alive, but maybe just aren't the right fit for that location. There's overhead lines that, the tree's been pruned poorly. So yeah, you can take that tree down. I want you to replace it. I can't force anyone to do this, but I can frequently convince them to do it with conversation of, yeah, remove that tree that's too large for the location. Let's plant a tree that has a smaller mature height that is the appropriate tree for that location. So I have a lot of those conversations with folks. And I made a lot of progress doing that with folks last year and not just losing trees, but losing and replacing. Folks are actually pretty willing to replace a tree, which is really makes me happy. But not all the time, but that's where a lot of my time goes in the summer months. And this time of year, I'm trying to get prepared for the summer season, but a lot of my time right now is going towards RFP for a tree company. Figuring out I've got figuring out some details with getting a consultant on board for code updates and some other things like that. So it's a little bit of both. In the summer, I tend to just be responsive to what folks need.
So in terms of what you have up there for the future, just at first blush, I would rank that 1, 2, 3 in terms of priorities. Risk management and hazard tree removal. In terms of public safety and structural protection is almost always going to be a priority, speaking for myself. And I would like to see a line item that serves as kind of a contingency for that and for storm cleanup. In terms of those in this room, maybe Jeremy and Jane might be the only ones that remember the 2 summer storms we had in 2014, where we had almost hurricane strength winds that snapped ponderosa pines across town and uprooted spruces to where it looked like pickup sticks out there talking. You can't plan for that, really forecast for that, but if you have a contingency for something like that does happen, you want to be able to get.
And we have emergency money. So, if something really bad happens, yeah, it's emergency money that we. So,
It's probably cleaner to have a standing contingency.
Yeah, and the kind of hazard component, our streets crew is they know every street. They're up and down them every day doing their thing, but they alert me when something's amiss. And just last month or maybe in December, big silver maple just north of here on Ella, I think. It's on private property, but it had a large branch coming out that was horizontal, basically came over the road. That branch had dropped about 3 inches in 3 weeks. Wes, our street supervisor, called me and said, hey, we need to go over there right now. Went over, looked at it. Thankfully, Best Way Tree Service was able to respond and we got that. It was going to come down and it was going to come down at any time. And it was a location where people parked under. So things like that. That branch was 15 inches in diameter, larger than a lot of mature trees. So things like that are I think exactly what you're talking about, Chase. That was proactive because the branch hadn't fallen yet, but it was just barely proactive.
And we do have a commission member representing utilities. And I'd be curious, if it's not in this meeting, if it's a future meeting, getting Jeff's input on second future item, tree clearance pruning zone from a utility perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think this will be, like you said, Eric, a much, longer conversation. I think there's a lot of points that we should be discussing. And I think we should have probably a plan for tackling that. So we have a little bit of information here about, what has the budget been? I think it would be useful for our group to know also the budget is different from what was spent in prior years. I think it would be useful information to know how much have we spent in the storm response, and cleanup. How much did we used to spend in tree planting? How many hours go, towards the permitting and approval process? I think it'd be useful for us to see like what has been required. And then we can move forward and say, what other areas should we try to grow in and what can we propose? So I think maybe more information, if you can bring that to another meeting, Eric.
I can see what additional information I can dig up. My time, the hours that Mayor Grimm mentioned are not broken out, and I can give an estimate.
I think estimates are
But,
fine.
it's not, I don't allocate 50 hours to tree permits and
Sure.
50 hours to this group and so on, but
Sure, yeah, it's not like a, very formal. I just think it could give us good guidance on, well, at least this much has been needed, so we can't use this money for something else. But it could give us some ideas about, okay, well, here's where we're starting and what other areas are we maybe needing to grow in? So how much more do we need to even recommend for this budget?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. I've got to leave in 5 minutes, but I do want to have a brief conversation, like Paige was mentioning, about what folks might want to do at the Arbor Day event. I emailed Joyce. I'm going to set up a time to meet with her next week and discuss. But if anyone has something they want to do at the event, volunteer for, program, whatever, let me know, and I'll write a little list here, and I'll discuss it with Joyce next week.
Sounds good. Before we completely move off the budget process, just so we can better prepare for our conversation at the next meeting. So figure out where we've been. Eric's gonna bring some data on that. We should all be thinking about what we've observed, maybe where we can grow. What are the deficits? What do you observe in the city that maybe hasn't been happening that you think should be part of a healthy urban forest program? And bring those ideas to the next meeting. I think that would be important. In order to determine this budget, we also need to know our population because there's certain per capita numbers that should be followed. There's bare minimums and then there's kind of averages that we should maybe shoot for. So we need our population data. We need to know roughly what our percent canopy cover is right now, so that we can know, are we super deficient? Are we doing pretty well? What should we be shooting for reforestation of our canopy per year? That would give us some defensible budget goals. And how many urban trees are we even talking about that we currently take care of? I think the tree plotter data could probably give us some of these figures pretty easily.
Yeah, and a lot of that data is available in the forestry management plan.
Okay,
Almost all of it is.
okay, so somehow one of us should probably bring that data to our next meeting so we can have some data to work off of. Does anyone care to volunteer to bring that data?
I would just add on to that, Vice Chair. I think would be really helpful, at least compelling for me to see some comparisons. I know some of you have come from much more urban areas, places where sources are. Understand what a city like Seattle allocates per resident, some comparisons there, because at the end of the day, that's people-ish, right? So community of 10,000 to cities that have these resources. Maybe just give us some more in the council more data too. So that's really it's going to be helpful to understand.
What suggestion, Mayor, is, I did this one working on the geese issue.
Yeah.
Nelson, BC.
Nelson, different funding mechanism, Court Lane's close.
Right. Standpoint of what they do.
Yeah, and Court Lane's different. They get something called dedicated. Whole different. 50,000 people get dedicated federal funds. Or again, not a big city. We feel like it sometimes. Again, we get some.
I think that's a great idea. That was.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, let's look at how, and all this data is published, each of us can pick a city that we think is somewhat comparable to Sandpoint and come up with those figures. How do they allocate their urban forestry budget and how much is it? And what is their tree canopy cover? What does that look like? And I think that will give us a good idea of how we should present this to council for our recommendation.
The one piece of guidance I would offer from the council perspective is, like the mayor said, we know how bad of our road situation is. We have a number, 59 million or whatever he said. I don't think council knows how big the urban forestry problem is. So don't go into this exercise thinking, oh, we don't want to tell them that we need X number of dollars because they'll think that's a ridiculous ask. I think council knows it's a big problem. And just like our roads, we're not going to fix it in one budget year, right? So just knowing how big the problem is and how much we would actually have to spend each year to start making a dent in that, I think is useful information. As long as we go into it knowing that you're probably not going to get all of that, right? But just getting council aware of how big that problem actually is, what it would take to cover 1/10 of the city every year for 10 years, right? So
Yeah,
that's the only thing I would ask from the council perspective.
that's a great point, Kyle. Currently the numbers are a little fuzzy, but let's say $50,000 is what we have currently allocated for trees in any context. That includes equipment, all those things. If the number that this group comes up with is $200,000. Wouldn't expect that the, budget would be increased to $200,000, but showing that we have need for that is the critical part.
Exactly.
It won't necessarily be allocated, but knowing that you can start to identify that backlog. And if it's not the city split into 10 quadrants, it's split into 30 because we can do 1/30th of the city in maintenance a year. It's better than nothing.
And that's how the code is written too, an analysis of budgetary needs, not what we did in the past, but what do we need to get our arms around this problem?
Right. Good. Okay, so I think we're moving forward. The final item on the agenda is an opportunity for general announcements and comments from the commissioners and staff. I do think we should try to address the Arbor Day issue quick if you have a moment to
Yeah.
do that, Eric.
Anybody have ideas?
I thought Joyce's idea was really good about providing.
We're
free
talking
food.
commissioners. Thank you.
I'm just gonna, Jane, I'm gonna
Excuse me, Jane.
just
Thank
give
you.
you that.
Thank
It
you.
might be of interest.
I thought Joyce's idea about providing tree seedlings at our booth would be really
Yeah.
good idea.
I actually reached out to Matt Perkins, IDL's urban community forestry manager, to see what resources they might have available. So we'll see what they say.
And if we secure those seedlings, does anyone here have the bandwidth to care for them in the week or two? That's pretty important leading up to the event. They need to be in the right location and stay watered. And so we want to make sure that somebody can deal with that. Is that something you're okay doing, Eric?
It depends what's going on that time. I did it last year barely, but they survived. So
How about Conixu and Astor Garden Center?
Oh, that
Or
might
the
be,
plant society.
Well, we don't have facilities for that. No, there's no place to store there. I mean, there's just a little shed with tools.
I do think it's worth bringing Conixu into the fold, whether or not they have
Yeah.
bandwidth to do
I
that.
don't know if they're ready for that, but
Conixu,
might
I can reach out to Regan
yeah.
and see if they would want to be a part of this event generally.
Yes.
Because Conixu does all sorts of great stuff in the area.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And
Yeah.
Kara Johnson was at the library, but is now going to be the manager at Astor Garden Center.
Cool.
So
I'm sure she'd be supportive.
she'd
Yeah.
be
And if not at Astor Gardens, maybe up at their shed. Woods.
Big red shed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
They've got space there too.
sounds like we have contingency plans for our contingency plans, so we should go for it with the seedlings if we're on board with giving those out. We also have to think about like the bags and supplies and all that, but we can talk about that in the future. Are there any other ideas for our Arbor Day booth that you guys want to put on the table so that we can be putting things in? Because Joyce said she would need stuff by next week. to be able to publicize anything major, that we're gonna do.
I had, last year at the event, I had various educational pamphlets from ISA, printed. That's easy. I can get those there. How to plant a tree, how to prune a tree, that sort of thing. Those are just nice to have printed. A lot of folks grabbed them.
Being a banner is nice to identify the group.
What about educational things beyond paper pamphlets?
So I'll probably have to take myself out of the running for being like manning the booth and doing educational things, because I'm doing the Ask an Arborist booth at this event.
Yeah, the Native Plant Society,
Well, that's a part of the event, right? Ask an arborist.
Yes, I'm just saying I'll be at a different booth at this event. And myself and Nick will be the arborists on site answering those questions at the Ask an Arborist booth. Otherwise, I would say, hey, I'll come to our booth and I'll do it for our commission. I'm just saying I have to kind of step back. So
No, I
if
just
any of
mean
you-
in contact, when I talk with Joyce, or maybe she already knows.
She already knows. Yeah,
But-
yeah. I've
Yeah.
worked all that out. That's just me volunteering my time separate from this commission. So just trying to clarify that on that date, I won't be at our booth working it. I mean, I'll probably stop by, but. So if there's anything that you guys want to offer educationally, like a kids game or, one thought that actually popped into my head is, so last year there was a poetry competition and it was inspired by trees, but what about a photography competition where people go take a picture of a tree that they think should be a heritage tree or is a heritage tree in Sandpoint? That would do two things. It'd be really fun for people to do. We'd get some cool pictures of trees, I'm sure. And it would help us identify other trees that might be good heritage trees in our city.
It's a good idea.
Paige, Preston could speak to this. We do tree events for kids at the Arboretum every May. It's very, very, well planned. I participated last 2 years prior to that. So there's probably a lot of information. They connect.
yeah, we may have our own booth there
At the library
at the
event.
library.
Oh, okay, okay.
We're working on that one.
This is a good problem to have too many booths at this event. This is good.
That sounds really good.
Okay.
I think that's enough.
Yeah, I think that's,
It's a 3-hour event
yeah,
and, there's only so many resources, so.
right. We
if
don't
we
have very
can-
much time.
If we can track down some tree seedlings and with those things, I think we'll be in good shape.
Okay, so tree seedlings, you'll have brochures from the ISA, Eric. And do we want to put out information about a tree photo contest? Do we have capacity to receive those digitally? And then, our commission would, I guess, vote or publicize. It would be just a way to publicize cool stuff about trees, basically. But I think that's what's required, is we would have to be able to receive entries. The library would be doing the legwork for publicizing stuff about this event. So I'm sure if we get them the info by their deadline next week, we don't have to do any of that, publicizing stuff, which is great.
I would think the reader fee would be very staged.
Yeah,
Photographic.
The reader actually did, they ran an article about the poetry contest last year. So I'm sure, I don't want it to be too complicated, though. It needs to be fairly streamlined and simple. So do we feel like that's something that we can we receive those photos at a designated email address and then look at them and put some out there publicly somehow? Does that seem reasonable to you guys?
Sounds good to me. Just where they go, where they get delivered. That's the question.
It does run into some legal challenges. You're gonna hate me for this, but to receive a photo, to be the did you or she'll spend an hour
Mm.
release that needs to be signed by anyone.
Then
What
the
if we
que- the
don't
question-
publish it? What if the reader publishes it?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be ideal.
Suggestion,
We're just voting on it, yeah.
the Idaho Myth Weaver, our nonprofit, our last podcast was all about trees. Maybe we could be the email recipient of photographs.
That's
Have to
wonderful,
talk- I
yeah.
have to, just consult for it. But, we have a dedicated email to just our podcast called Voices of the Wild Earth. See JPEGs.
With all due respect, we've gotten a little bit,
Sorry.
Yeah, I do. I think we should probably try to wrap up this meeting, but I just wanted to try to make a decision with the commission on this. Do we move forward with this? Any other ideas about our booth or not? Just because we have very little time before, I mean, March is about to start and this event is in April, so.
I mean, a photo contest would engage residents, and
Yes,
that would be ideal activity. I don't know if we're giving an award, voting on, the best photos but there's always the question about kids and photographs and
yeah,
the legality of all that.
we would have to put some rules in place, just the tree, no people or something like that.
Somebody's got to.
Under
Yeah.
the tree.
Right, so we need some actual criteria. So we're kind of out of time to discuss this right now. However, maybe if it's not a quorum, two of us could discuss this, and be in touch with Joyce at the library about it. So that we're, of course, respecting all the legality of our commission, but also making some strides on this in a deadline that makes sense. What do you guys think about that? Trying to make some headway. If we are in agreement that this is a good idea, we just have to figure out how to do it. I think if we wait till our next meeting, it's too late. That's why we're still sitting here. So,
I mean, what Joyce had to offer was great. Seemed to lead with the idea of kind of running the joint effort.
okay. Well,
Maybe the library can receive
maybe they can. I can float that idea.
that would be
here.
ideal because it's their event.
Yeah. And maybe our board just is the voting on the entries, and then we're also receiving all that information about potential heritage trees. Okay, I'll see if I can kind of put that onto the library's plate and I will let you guys know. Okay, so,
Take the bus as a back.
does anyone have any other general announcements or comments that they'd like to include before we end the meeting? The only last thing I'll say is, so at the beginning of when we formed this new commission, my understanding was that we were going to have a roster that listed our names, our email addresses for this commission, and maybe our phone numbers. I think that's pretty standard for commissions. I never received anyone else's contact information, and when we have things like we're planning for this Arbor Day event, it would be really handy to be able to reach out, or like as we're thinking about the budget, maybe one of us has a question or comment to another commission member. So I think it's important that we receive each other's contact emails for this commission.
You'll have to reach out to Haley, deputy clerk, about that. Go ahead.
Insight, I've done this in a previous commission. Basically, you guys would need to respond back with a written, your approval for that email to be shared because it becomes public record. It's in your best interest to maybe create an additional email account just for this committee, and just that email is public record, not
Yes,
first email,
Do you mean like a listserv?
No, like
like a Gmail, like a.
JP at
Okay,
Gmail.
because we all,
Yeah,
I
we
think
did
we all
that.
did that.
yes, we all did that, but we were never provided with each other's email addresses. So
I will see about stuff.
Haley's clarification on that was not encouraging commission business that could constitute a quorum outside of it.
and we all understand those rules, but it is typical that commission members would be
I
able
encourage you to
to
reach out to Haley.
reach out to each other.
Yeah, and the nitty gritty of it is we get public records request, all the time that basically, can dive into stuff. Last thing you want is lawyers coming and saying, don't destroy any of your emails. We have a subpoena for your email. Best if you can obviously communicate, you can call one another.
But we don't have each other's contact info.
You are all here at a meeting. Hey, face with your email,
Okay.
with your.
How about at the end of the meeting, we
Which-
all,
Yeah.
I just thought that the standard protocol was for that I'm trying to do this the right way, the legal way. So I thought it was protocol for that information to be provided by maybe the clerk or,
In my other commissions, we've only shared emails. We have not we haven't done phone numbers. I don't.
oh, emails. Sorry. What I mean is whatever the proper way is, which is probably just our official commission email. That's fine.
Jen, and I'll check in with Haley once
Okay.
again. And then I can
Awesome.
send a starter email, you'll respond back with your approval for
That's
that email.
perfect.
So we have it in writing and then you can start
Okay,
acknowledging that.
excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, with
Right.
no further business on the agenda, this meeting is now adjourned at 4:49 PM.
And
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.